College days. Undoubtedly the best days of your life. Especially when you move out of your city. You get to experience so much. Living on your own for the very first time, socializing, partying, making new friends every day. And of course, sudden plans. They're the best. Especially the one with the road trips. It was 26th of December. I remember that day very clearly. We were having our winter break and we decided to go on a road trip. Tanya, Saira, Kanis, and I. That's when I learned that not pre booking hotels during the winter time was a bad idea. We didn't get any rooms anywhere and we're really bummed. That's when Tanya came with the good news. At least at that time, we thought it was. Her father, Mr. Ray, was a pretty well connected person. One of his friends was starting a resort business and it was supposed to open on 1st January. That friend had agreed to give us a resort for one night and we were allowed to bring our friends, but he would not be able to provide us with more than one help, a caretaker, because no other employees were available during the holiday season. We were thrilled. Kanis and I, we started packing and were done within 15 minutes. Saira took the wheels and we hit the road. The resort was pretty far away from our place. It was located in the outskirts of the city. Took us almost 3.5 hours and was almost 8 p.m. when we reached there. The place seemed nice. It had a huge gate, but all we could see from outside were the dim lights. It was dark. We found a payphone outside the resort and were relieved because we lost our network 30 minutes before reaching the resort. We called our parents and let them know we reached safely. When we reached the gate, we saw a man. He was standing there, welcoming us inside. He was a young man, had a big smile on his face, and was very friendly. He showed us to our cottage. I don't know whether it was only me, but I noticed that nearly all of the lights were turned off, and only the main hallway lights were on. But it had some kind of a sensor which made it turn off whenever we left its area. It was creepy actually. However, our allotted cottage was actually the best one in the entire resort. The main attraction was the pool. Saira loved to swim and the moment the boy left us alone, she jumped right into it. I was the next to join her and I loved it. We turned on the music system and started our little party. And it was perfect. The boy would come from time to time and give us food and drinks and we were at our own cloud nine. It was around 3 a.m. when we decided to go and change. The cottage had 6 rooms and the washrooms were attached to it. We opened 4 rooms and kept our luggage inside. I went to have a quick shower. When I was changing, I suddenly noticed that my room had a very big portrait. An old lady. It was kind of weird, as if it felt like she was staring right into my eyes. She had those weird eyes, the ones at which you may look from any angle but it would seem as if it was looking straight at you. I quickly snapped out of it. I started dressing up fast. I don't know why fast, but I was fast. Then I suddenly heard Tanya screaming and running out of her room. The 3 of us also ran and caught her. She was weeping hard, and the rest of us, well, we were puzzled. And then again I noticed that it was not only in my room, but the entire cottage had extremely weird portraits hanging almost on each wall, and all of those had those weird eyes. Finally, Tanya started talking. She said that when she entered her room, she was feeling dizzy. She closed her door and switched the lights off and went straight to bed, setting an alarm at 3:30 a.m. Immediately after she turned off the lights, I remember her telling me she heard a splash. She thought maybe someone was using the washroom. She closed her eyes, relaxed her head on the pillow, when suddenly she heard a knock on the door. She got up and opened the door, but there was no one. Then she again closed the door and turned on the dim lights this time and went to bed. However, This time, when she closed her eyes, she could feel someone was looking at her. And she quickly opened her eyes, but there was no one. But surely there was that portrait. Again, an old lady. She couldn't help herself but kept on staring at her. It was weird, as if it was drawing her towards it. She couldn't stop herself. That's when her dim lights went off, and she jumped up from her bed and bolted to the doors. But she couldn't open it. The door was locked from outside. She tried her best, but she couldn't open the door. Then she said that she heard a thud sound. When she turned, she saw that the portrait fell off the wall. She was so scared that she threw a flower vase towards the portrait and started screaming. That's when we heard her, and the door suddenly opened. After hearing this, Saira and Kanis thought that she was way too exhausted and stayed with her. I went to find our help. Oddly, then I realized that I didn't know his name. But the moment I stepped outside of her cottage, I found him cleaning the poolside. I asked him to come inside to check and clean Tanya's room. He came with me, went inside, and then told us that everything was all right. There was no broken glass or anything. The lock was working too. This comforted Saira and Kanis way more than it comforted Tanya. Then we decided that the four of us would sleep in my room. We went inside and were pretty tired, so we dozed off pretty quick. Soon I was dreaming. I was standing by the swimming pool. I turned around but couldn't see anyone. I was standing there in the middle of the night, all alone. But I could hear a faint tune. I tried to follow the tune and found that it was coming from inside the pool. I stepped in the pool one step at a time, and my God, the water was cold. I swam towards the music, and slowly it was getting clearer. I almost reached the sound when I saw something floating. I grabbed and turned it, and I threw it as hard as I could back into the water. It was that portrait, the one in my room. I turned and tried to swim back. And when I turned, I saw that the pool was filled with 100 of portraits. I tried my best to swim back, but something was holding my ankles. I looked back and saw that there was no one. I again tried to swim, but then I realized that something was sucking me backwards. I started screaming. I screamed and screamed, but it was Saira's scream that woke me up. I woke up and saw that the portrait in my room was gone. I looked beside me and saw that everyone was up. We knew from the look in our eyes that something was wrong. Saira and Kanis, without saying a word, went to their room, and within 2 minutes were back with their bags. Taina's bag was already in my room. We packed as fast as we could and we left the cottage. It was 4 a.m. and still moderately dark. But while we were leaving my room, I saw that all the walls were empty. Not a single portrait. It was as if it was a different cottage altogether. We ran to the front desk, screamed a few times for the boy to return the keys, but no one came. We left the key at the desk, then ran towards our car. We stacked our luggage, and this time I took the wheels. I was known to be a rash driver, but still I took the wheels. And the moment I started the engine, there was a knock at my window. It was a boy. He was asking what happened, but I was too shocked to realize an answer. Kanis heard him, and she said that we had to leave early because of an emergency, and that the keys were at the desk. He then went to open the main gate, and the moment we were driving past him, he said pretty loudly, "Visitors again?" with a big smile. I heard that clearly. All of us were completely shut. We didn't say a single word. I remember driving extremely fast and focused only on the road. It took us only 1.5 hours to reach Tanya's place. Her mother was shocked to see us so early. We went straight to Tanya's room, and that's when we all started weeping. He dozed off and woke up around 9. After waking up, we talked. Saira and Tania and Kanis saw the same dream too. Each one of us were shook to our core. Somehow, even after returning to Tania's place, we were still stuck in that cottage. We decided to never talk about this incident with anyone. We freshened up and went downstairs for breakfast. Mr. and Mrs. Ray were already there. They greeted us and we joined them. We were having our breakfast when Mr. Ray received a call. He left the table and came back after 2 minutes and looked very upset. It was his friend who called, the one who owned the resort. That guy was trying to reach Mr. Ray the entire night before, but couldn't. He needed to inform him that the help he promised cancelled last minute and there was no one there at the resort. I don't know what happened to me, but I started lying. I told him that after we reached there, when we saw there was no one, we went to someplace else and didn't stay much long. That's why we were back so early. But after saying this, I couldn't concentrate. I looked at Saira. She was trying her best to hold her tears. Kanis didn't look at me. She was staring at her plate. Tania left saying that she had to use the washroom. And all I could see in front of my eyes was that boy's smile. That big smile. 5 years later, we got to know that the plot where the resort was used to be a slum. The people who disagreed to give up the land were forced to move out. And when the evictors sensed an unrest, many were harmed, just to send a message to others. Many ended their lives too, because they had no other place to go. Maybe what happened to us, what we experienced, was related to this. Who knows? Who was the woman in that portrait? Or what happened to Tania in that room? Whether it was all actually happening or it was just a nightmare. Or who the boy was, still remains unanswered. We never went back to that resort, ever again. We never tried to find out what was wrong with that place. Because after all, sometimes it's just hard to accept the truth.
If you like this video, do not forget to like and share. Otherwise, the ghost will haunt you. And for more such content, click on the subscribe button. Do not forget to click on the bell icon.